So this is the part where things get a little deeper.
Yeah, we're moving from habits and mindset into bigger questions.
The uncomfortable ones.
The ones people usually avoid.
Like, what am I actually doing with my life?
Exactly.
That question alone can stress people out.
Because they think they're supposed to have a clear answer.
And most people don't.
Almost no one does, especially not early on.
So let's start there. Purpose. What is it really?
I think people misunderstand purpose.
How so?
They think it's one big fixed thing, like a single mission they're supposed to discover.
Like something waiting for them out there.
Yes, and if they don't find it, they feel lost.
So what's the reality?
Purpose is built, not found.
That's a strong statement.
It takes pressure off. You don't have to discover your purpose, you create it through what you do.
So it's not about waiting for clarity.
It's about creating clarity through action.
That connects to everything we've talked about so far.
Exactly. Action leads.
But people still feel stuck, like they don't know what direction to take.
That's because they're trying to choose the perfect path.
And they're afraid of choosing wrong.
Yes, but there's no perfect path.
That's hard to accept.
It is, but once you accept it, you move faster.
So instead of asking, what's the perfect thing for me,
You ask, what's a direction I'm curious about?
that feels lighter.
Because it is. Curiosity is easier to act on than pressure.
So direction starts with curiosity.
Most of the time, yes.
And then what?
You explore it. You try things, you gain experience.
And that leads to clarity?
Yes, but slowly.
There's that word again.
It always comes back.
Let's talk about feeling lost. A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, and it's more common than people admit.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's so much pressure to have everything figured out.
Especially at a young age.
Exactly. You're expected to know what you want, where you're going, and build a life around it.
That's a lot.
It is, and it's unrealistic.
So feeling lost isn't failure?
Not at all. It's part of the process.
That's reassuring.
It should be. Feeling lost usually means you're questioning things, and that's how growth starts.
So it's actually a good sign.
In many cases, yes.
Let's shift to life design. That sounds intentional.
It is. Life design is about creating your life instead of drifting through it.
So instead of reacting, you're choosing.
Exactly.
Where do you start with that?
You start with awareness again,
Of what?
of how you're currently living, your habits, your time, your priorities.
So you look at your life honestly.
Yes, without judgment, just observation.
And then?
You ask, is this aligned with the life I want?
That question can be uncomfortable.
Very, because sometimes the answer is no.
And then you have to face that.
Yes, but that's where change begins.
So once you see the gap, what do?
You don't try to fix everything at once.
I'm sensing a pattern.
You should by now.
Small changes.
Always. You adjust one area at a time.
What areas matter most?
Usually health, work, relationships, and personal growth.
That covers most of life.
Exactly.
Let's take one. Work, for example. A lot of people feel stuck in jobs they don't enjoy.
Yeah, that's very common.
So what should they do?
First, understand what they don't like.
That sounds obvious, but people skip it.
They do, but clarity comes from contrast.
Meaning?
Knowing what you don't want helps you understand what you might want.
That makes sense.
Then you start exploring alternatives slowly.
Without quitting everything immediately.
Exactly. You build options before making big changes.
That reduces risk.
And stress.
What about people who feel like they're behind in life?
That's usually based on comparison.
Comparing timelines.
Yes, but there's no universal timeline.
People still feel it, though.
Because society creates expectations when you should succeed, achieve, figure things out.
So how do you deal with that pressure?
You come back to your own path.
That sounds simple, but hard.
It is, but it's necessary. You can't live someone else's timeline.
That leads to frustration.
And burnout.
Let's talk about goals. Where do they fit into all of this?
Goals give direction, but they're not everything.
What do you mean?
People focus too much on outcomes and not enough on systems.
That sounds familiar.
Because it's the same principle. Goals are results, systems are what get you there.
So instead of saying, I want to be successful,
You focus on what you do daily.
and that leads to the result.
Exactly.
So goals are helpful, but not the main focus.
Yes, they guide you, but they don't define your daily actions.
Let's go deeper into purpose again. Does everyone need one?
Not in the way people think.
Meaning?
You don't need a grand, world-changing purpose to live a meaningful life.
That's important.
Meaning can come from simple things: growth, relationships, contribution.
So purpose doesn't have to be dramatic.
Not at all.
That takes a lot of pressure off.
It should. Otherwise, people feel like they're failing just because they don't have a big mission.
So purpose can evolve over time.
It always does.
That's comforting.
It means you're not locked into one path forever.
Let's talk about decisions. People struggle with making decisions about their life.
Because they're afraid of making the wrong one.
That fear again.
Yes, but most decisions aren't permanent.
That's true.
You can adjust, you can change direction.
So it's better to decide and learn than to stay stuck.
Always.
Action creates clarity.
Exactly.
Let's bring this together. If someone feels lost, uncertain, and stuck, what should they do first?
Stop waiting for a perfect plan.
And
Pick a direction that feels interesting enough and take a small step.
even if it's not perfect?
Especially if it's not perfect.
And trust that clarity will come later.
Yes, through experience.
That's a powerful message,
It is, because it removes the pressure to have everything figured out.
which most people don't.
Exactly.
So purpose isn't something you find.
It's something you build.
Direction doesn't come from thinking forever.
It comes from trying things.
And life design isn't about perfection.
It's about intentional progress.
That feels real.
That's the goal.
All right, next time we bring everything together.
Yeah, the long-term picture. Growth, setbacks, staying consistent over years.
The real journey. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. If you're listening, don't stress about having your whole life figured out.
Just choose a direction and take one step. That's enough for now.
Always.